Yeah, hopefully you are able to see my screen, right?
Yes, you can.
Okay, good. So, I mean, these are the questions that Salesforce asked Deepthi. So please provide the name of the user experience. But potentially, we need to provide the user ID of the user. And also, typically, they ask you to provide login access for the user. But in this case, since they have to log into mobile, we may also need to provide a password for that user. Are there multiple users? So typically, to grant access, we go to your settings, and here there is a grant login access. And whenever we open case with Salesforce, we need to give access to them. So that way they can log into our Arc and they can troubleshoot the issues. That is one way. And the other one, yeah, are there multiple users? So in this case, I believe it is multiple users. We tried with at least 2 users. It's the same problem. Uh, and yeah, we can provide that information. And the org id, we know how to see the org id, right? So we can go to company information and we see this information. Just compare this one. I believe this is the one. If not, we need to provide the right org id. So this one you would be able to see it under setup and company information. And each org will have different id. So that's how Salesforce can differentiate each org. So this is the org id. So basically this is the salesforce.com org id. And what is the user experience? Is there an error, a white screen? So this one, I believe we already provided them the screenshot. If not, I think we need to provide a phone screenshot. And also maybe you can even record the screencast and send it to them. And so please provide me information of the device you experiencing this issue on. Yeah, this one you can say simply iOS. And I mean, if there is any, I updated my operating system recently, so I am on latest and greatest OS from the phone, but I'm also having the same problem. But we can say all those things. And this is the OS version. So on the phone, so I believe we can check what OS version, and maybe potentially on the help we can find that one and we can send it. And this is the mobile app version that we are running on. I believe on the Salesforce one there is a app version, and that's the one they are referring, not the app manager version that we talked about. So those are the details that they are asking, and typically, so this is the main important information. But in this case, let's say if they need to log in as on the phone, they might need a password. So for that, I think we need to reset the user ID. I mean, you can pick any user by going to user and reset a password, and you can simply send the password also to those guys. I mean, since this is a private org, it is not very confidential. We should be okay to send that password. So for that, I think you can pick any user. Yeah, email ID. I think you need to. Yeah, when we let's say you can set your email address for this guy, and when we reset the password, it will send a link to your email, and you can reset the password. And then once you have the password, so you try to log in from your mobile. Most all you will run into the same issue, and then send that user ID. So this is the username and the password that you set. So those that information should be good enough for them to proceed. Yeah, please try it. If you are running into any problems, so let me know. We can work together on it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. So let's move on then.
I have a few questions.
Yeah.
So in the last class, you mentioned about mass enabling updates in the list view.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one option in the user interface which says enable inline editing.
Yeah.
So I tried enabling it,
Mhm.
and then I tried it on the accounts page. I did not see that. I mean, like enabling, it's already enabled, but if you disable it, it's not getting disabled.
Let's look at that. Since you are a system admin, maybe that may by default it might have that one, but
But I
still
tried. I tried logging in as a
regular user.
regular user.
Okay, see here, yeah,
This has
definitely
nothing
it
to
is.
do with profile, right?
On the profile also there is mass. Yeah, it should be on the profile, not on the user interface. So let's go back to profile and let's disable that one. I think it is something called mass edits from lists. Yeah, I believe this is the permission. So let's remove this one and let's try. So login as other user. Why am I not able to edit the profile?
I can give it a try because no, I was enabling it from.
No, no, I mean this is the permission. So there is a profile permission. That's the one you might be seeing on the user level. So this should be the permission we should be playing with. Yeah, for some reason it is. I don't see edit button on the profile. Just checking that. So I'm on go to profile. So I go to system admin. Okay, so it is not allowing me to make changes on the system admin. Yeah, I can only edit properties here. Yeah, I want to change something, but let's go to some user profile and we can play with that one. So let's see the executive user. The Alison Wheeler is on this profile. So let's see what permission this user has. And if that user so let's go. Yeah, so this one is enabled. So let's take it off from our side from list and let's try to see what is going to happen. So we change the executive user and the profile, and Allison is on this profile. So let's log in as Allison. It's still allowing us to change it. Yeah, let's look at the permission mass. So you must also enhance Yeah, so enhanced list, these are the permissions. The inline item. Yeah, but yeah, let me look into it. Actually, that's the permission. So let's also change the other one, other setting. Enable inline editing. So that is for the page layout.
So what does this mean? This option is for page layout only?
I mean, this one, the first one should be the page layout one. So, but we can so enable enhanced list. That is one permissions they were talking about. But on the profile level, you need the other permissions that I just changed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is enable that one, and there is another enable inline editing. So if we take out those two, that won't work. But I mean that's not what we want to do. So now if we
Okay,
save,
so if you disable these two here in the user interface, it will be applicable to every single person, right?
yeah. I
So the
mean
functionality.
typically we enable this one, and then on the user profile you basically give permissions or take out permissions. That's how you would do. So
Mhm.
let's look at accounts one more time.
So the profile level trumps this
No, I mean
user
this one
interface.
still has that thing.
Um,
Yeah, I'll take a look at this one. I mean, the permissions I know for sure. The permission that I changed is the right permission.
mhm.
Uh, and let's look at is there any other permission. So I mean on the user interface level, so we changed it and it is still working. Um,
I have few more questions. Srikanth.
yeah. So let's go through one by one. Edit, you may get a lot of things. Edit. Yeah, I'll take a look at this
Yeah.
guy, but I'm pretty sure that's the permission, but I don't know why that is not working.
And so usually what happens in the company when as an what does the administrator do while creating a profile? So he has to assign users to it, right?
Uh-huh.
Every user has to have a profile.
Yeah.
So do you have to go to the individual user and then change his profile? Is that how it is? Or can he add multiple users from the assigned users button? Because now I see only new users can be assigned to your profile. If you have
Uh,
to,
yeah, I mean, typically, if you have direct integration, so when you are creating the user, you can say which profile that user should belong to. That's the API job. But when you want to change multiple users at the same time to profile, is that what you are asking? Or I mean, sometimes when you say create users, you can create multiple users at
yeah.
once. So
So
add
that,
multiple.
yeah, you created a new user, and we have provision for creating multiple new users and assigning to the profile that we created in one shot.
Mhm.
But if you have to change the profile for existing, will that even happen, or is that not a valid use case?
No, I mean that happens. So that is quite common. So at that time, typically you write some scripts. So when I say scripts, you write them here. and you execute them, or you can even create some fx classes and you say what is the criteria. So let's say if you want all the sales reps, you want to move them to some company, let's say Crestsoft sales rep profile. If you create that one, first you retrieve all the sales rep users and then you change the profile, and that's how you would do. So if, I mean, typically you write some programming for that, or you can extract the data, and this one we will do it in the next, I think, next or sixth module. You take the data, you extract all of these users into some Excel CSV, and then you upload it back. While uploading back, you give a profile name, so and a new profile name. So you take the same user, basically on that user you say, okay, I want to apply new profile. So that's how mass changes you can do.
Okay.
So basically there is a declarative ways using the data loader option, or using the code you can do it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we will do that using data loader. So potentially when we go through that, you should be able to do it by yourself.
Yeah, and with regards to assigning a lightning experience, we go into the profile and we do it, right?
Mhm.
Is that how it is, or is there any other way to because profile level will impact, or give the ability to the entire user set assigned to the profile. If you have to do it for any single user,
Yeah. If you want to do single user, potentially you create something called permission set. If you see here that LEX is some permission set that I created. And for this guy, so I assigned this permission lightning experience user. And now, yeah, so you see this guy, I already assigned for this one. So lightning experience user. And also I assigned only one user to this profile. So as I was trying a few things, and Jin, I believe Jin is the one. So Jin Chang, so this user, the on the profile it is not enabled lightning experience, but on the user level, so through permission set I assigned the required permission.
okay. I'll keep asking my questions. I mean, like if you think I'm going overboard, just stop me.
Yeah.
Um, so the other thing that we discussed last class is customizing the global search. So one way that you mentioned is going while creating the profile, you uh, hide the tabs, right? This way,
Mhm.
you'll not be. Is that the only way, or is there any other way?
There are multiple ways. I mean, sometimes you say, okay, hey, I want to see this field rather than that field kind of thing. At that time, so potentially when you go to account, and there is this search settings, search layouts, and so these things. So here you will control what are the fields. So let's say when the records are coming, you want to see some other fields on the column. So let's say let's do one search here. So we are on this one. So let's say we look for ABC, and here it is going to give us some ABC, and so these columns here. So account name, phone, alias, it gave these things. And if we want to change anything, so account name, account site, and phone. So those are the three columns, account owner alias. And if you want to change any of these, potentially you should be able to change these configurations here, and those should immediately apply, and it will give you a new layout. I mean, that is one way. And also, let's say,
By, so by doing this, like you in a search layout, you have the list of fields on which you can search a page layout, correct?
no, it is not by which you are searching. So this is called social search. It searches across the arc, and it doesn't look like, okay whether this ABC is in any one of the columns. It is not about that. It will, once it searches for a record, when it is when it is showing the record, it will show these columns. That is one way to do this. But it will search for entire thing. So ABC is in this account name. ABC is on the opportunity for one of the account, and even for let's say this account, even though we don't say ABC labs, but in this opportunity, if we say some DEF or something, and when we search for DEF, it should bring up that one. So those are the things. So let's say here, so if you say this guy, so now think typically it might take a few minutes. So if you say DEF, it should bring that opportunity. But yeah, that's how it works. So it not only look for the columns that we configured, but across the record it will search.
I don't think I got it. But maybe I'll dig deeper later. I don't want to.
Yeah. I mean, the multiple ways. I mean, there should be multiple ways. If you and also on the user level, there may be some settings that you can do. Let's see if there is anything here. Display layout, customize my pages. I don't think user level there is anything. It's all admin level configuration. Not on the user level. So user, I mean, when there is something the user search, and if doesn't come up, sometimes it only looks at the top ones. And if you think, okay, there should be some email or something, and you have to basically click on that one, and system will remember, okay, now onwards I should be looking for email email messages also, kind of things. Yeah, play with it and you should be able to find some answers by yourself. But typically when you this is the by hiding the thing, you will not be able to see. And also, I mean, the tab settings, that is the main thing. And also the other settings that you can do. So let's say you this is too much information. Let's say this user shouldn't be seeing cases at all. Typically not only the tab, but also you can control the object access itself. So that we are going to talk in the next module.
With regards to unlisted chatter groups, is this something that we use in
yeah, I did something after that. I looked into it, unlisted one. So basically under charter setting, you will see enable unlisted charters.
Right.
Charter group. Then I enable that one.
But it says some Apex Visual Force code in my.
No, I mean, you don't need that. So let me show you how it works. So basically, if you see, I think here unlisted. So I enabled this one. By default, it was not enabled. Once I enable, when I go back to charter, so I also created one unlisted group. I thought of talking about that one today. So if you see, let's look at all these groups here. And here you see new product ideas. I kind of created this group as unlisted, and I did not expose it to a lot of users. So this one potentially, and if Jin or anybody would go in try to look for this new product ideas group, she won't be able to find. And I mean, now onwards, since we enabled that one, when we try to create new group, you will see one more option, unlisted. So that's the one, the basic, the setting that we did on the backend would reflect here going forward. And that's how you create unlisted. And now let's try to log in as Jin. And if we try to search for that group, she won't be able to find it. So she will be able to find all the groups, but not that unlisted one. Yeah, so since we I added that lightning experience user permission. So this user, even though the user doesn't have permission on her profile, she's able to see the lightning experience. So going back to groups, and so she could see all groups except that unlisted one. So even if she look for new product ideas, she won't be able to find that group anywhere. So that's how that unlisted charter group works. That is only for I mean, whoever is manager. So if whoever they want to be, they want the group members as active members. So only those guys the managers will add the users, then only they will get to know, okay, there is something out there. Otherwise, no, the other people won't even have some idea saying, okay, there is a charter that is happening on certain group.
And do we have to enable even at the profile level, right? Some permission? No.
No, so that one you don't need to do. So I only enabled the backend setting, and immediately that is good enough.
Okay, so
Yeah.
as long as they have that enable thing, sorry, I mean like
Yeah, that is the argoid setting that I showed.
anybody can create an unlisted one, right?
Yeah, I mean the user should have group creation permission. So let's say if Jin is the sales rep user, so let's see if Jin has access to create groups. I mean, we can control who creates groups. Let's look at this one first. Yeah, looks like she has access to create groups. Yeah, she can even create the unlisted. So, I mean, if we look at the backend settings, there should be some permission to say, okay, whether users should be able to create groups or not. So potentially based on that, we can control the permissions.
Okay. And there was one question in the previous session where you spoke about password policies.
Mhm.
So if we enable this setting at the profile level, then it would trigger the it would take whatever is set in the login policies for the company. Correct? Is that how it behaves?
Say that again.
So in the backend we have a setting for login policies, right?
Yeah, on
We
the
have
profile level.
and not at the profile level. If you do login policies in the quick find, yeah, one is like you have a permission here where it says password policies. So we enable it here.
Mhm. This is on the profile level.
Okay. And there's one at the org level, right? That applies for everybody, correct?
I don't think there is anything on the org level. Are you sure? I'm not aware of anything like that.
Because there is a security
Okay,
password.
yeah, password policies. Yes. Yeah. This is argoid, and whatever you do on the profile that overrides the arg one. So here we say 3 word. So the minimum length is 8 character, right? So if we go back to the profile, and on the profile level, if you say, okay, it has to be 12 character, and for that profile user, so they have to set the profile. I mean, system would force them to use 12 character instead of 8. So here, I mean, by default, it came 8 character, and you can say 12. And this user, only for this user, it will force 12 character.
So there was a question where since admin was bombarded with too many requests for account lockup, uh, the question was like, what user policies would be set, or where do we set to mitigate it?
Yeah, typically, I mean, let's say in this case, 3 times if a user enter wrong password, it will lock the user. And maybe if you say maybe eight password, I mean, it gives them 8 times chance. And also the other one is lockout effective period. I mean, this is the minimum one, so there is nothing more. Invalid login attempts. How many invalid login attempts? So yeah, that was enforce history. So this one potentially you can even say no limit. So that way you can try limited times. But this is not a recommended one because someone keeps on trying with some series or something, and they can easily hack the system.
Yeah, I mean, there should be some limitations, right? Like
Yeah, I mean you should force some limitation for sure.
Um, This may be a silly question. When you say the permission, when you talk about the permission, send emails at the profile level,
Mhm.
what actually does it do?
Yeah, typically when you go to contact, you will see send email. I mean, you can configure some actions. Say, okay, for this user, you want to send emails. And so right now, let me see. Yeah, so right now on this one doesn't have any emails. I mean, you're directly sending an email. So when you enable the user, the send email and add that quick action here, so that will bring a simple send email, and you can directly send email. So basically, it takes this email address and sends something.
It's basically enabling a feature for.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we will do those in the next units.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I took most
No,
of
no,
it.
no, no worries. Right. Most probably everyone may have these questions. So I think it's good. Yeah. So I mean, the review last class we saw some requirements. Basically, if at all Salesforce doesn't provide those kind of features, we can raise ideas, or we can upvote ideas if there is if someone already asked for it. And based on the number of votings, Salesforce typically take highest number of points, and that idea they try to implement and release it in the next releases. And user interface changes, we try to configure a home page for I think support rep. So we added some reports, and we basically we showed them what are their use case, I mean cases by status, by agents and all. And we also seen how to create the group charter groups, and how to enable collaboration between the team members. And we have seen the users. I believe we created a user, we assigned some permissions, and we played with a little bit of permissions on the profile level, but the same things can be done on the permission set. So the permission set typically, uh, if we want to run some pilot initially to get some feedback from users, you typically do it on the permission set level. And then when everyone is comfortable, you got enough feedback, and it is when the feature is good to go, so that time you apply the permission on the profile. But Salesforce recently they're trying to move away from profile, and they recommend us to use permission sets as much as possible. And also from deployment point of view also, there are some issues we've been seeing. So it's better to stick with permission sets if possible. But there are some things you cannot do with the permission set. I mean, assigning page layouts to a user, that can be only done with the profile. Those things, there is no way you can, I mean, if there is no way, you have to do it with profile. But if there are options, I would recommend go through permissions. So, I mean, little bit more on the charter. I think this one we can quickly cover. This covers two topics. Basically, Alison is asking, she wants to add few more team members to charter, but she doesn't have more licenses from regular licenses. Is there anything that you can do? That's what she's asking. When we looked at Salesforce company information, we have seen that we only got 55 active licenses from the org, but we also have seen some charter licenses. So those we can pretty much leverage it, and we can so these are the 55 licenses active, total licenses. We used 52, and there are 5,000 charter free license. Potentially we can leverage those, and the way we leverage those, we can go to charter settings again, and we can say allow coworker invitations. So I already enabled that one. So on your arcs, this one might not be enabled already because it didn't come enabled by default. Allow coworker. So this is the one, allow coworker invitation. When you enable it, it will force you to enter some domain. And typically you don't want to give Gmail like that because it is a wide one. And the expectation is the people from your company, and this is a coworker, so they should be from your company, because we don't have company email addresses. That's why I kind of used it, my Gmail address. And when you enable this feature, now when you go back to charter groups, and not only the team members, the regular users, I mean Salesforce licensed users, but you can also bring in some other folks. So let's say Spider Series laptops, she wants to invite that R&D people, and she can simply go here and create invite people. And she know, I mean, if she knows, okay, there is a R&D department, there is some Rob or somebody. So if they have presssoft.com, so she can directly send an email, and that user will get an email to their inbox and they can join. So where, I mean, that is the invitation sent. And if at all, so we have seen there are two types of domains that we selected. Let's say if I say I want to send something, some yahoo mail.com something, and immediately it will say an error saying, okay, this is not a valid domain. That is because we only enabled two domains, and the domain that we are trying to send an invitation is not a known domain from the settings. So that's why it stopped. And those are the that is one thing that we can do. So when they logged in, potentially a user will be created using charter free license, and that's how the licensing can be leveraged. And those guys will only see because they are part of that group, they can chat on that group. And because they don't have valid license, I mean Salesforce license, they cannot see the other things like accounts, contacts, all that stuff. I mean, they won't be able to see any of these tabs, but they can only see the charter tab, and maybe the groups, and very limited information that they can access from the system. So that is that. I mean, let's quickly go through this one. I think Kishore asked pretty much a lot of questions here. What is determined by the user's profile? I mean, there will be a lot of things. Can you name some?
What objects they can access, what permissions they have on the records, like read, write, delete.
Yeah, and also system permissions like running reports, sending emails, like that inline editing that we just did. We need to see why that one is not working, and those kind of permissions we can set. So what task can be performed by a user who is assigned to standard system administrator profile? I mean, standard system administrator is a very powerful profile. I mean, because the profile typically will have modify all permission. So they should be able to do quite a lot in the system. And I mean, if we go into the profile, and when we see what are all the objects that the user has, I mean, that way we can answer those questions. So support users at AWT computing can view, create, edit accounts. However, management does not want support users to delete accounts in the organization. How can administrator meet this requirement? So we want to stop support users to deleting any accounts.
The permissions on the object.
Yeah. So so on the permission, object permissions, so there are four things. I mean, typically we call them as CRUD. So create, read, edit, or update, and then delete. So we just need to remove that delete permission. And also if at all anybody has modify all would also gives delete, and we just need to remove modify all and delete. When creating a new user, what information is captured on the user record?
Name, address.
Yeah, so typically the username, the alias information, what profile that user should belong. So those
Local.
there are 6-7 mandatory information, the time zone and that information. A user receives an error message when attempting to log into Salesforce. What is the first step administrators should take to troubleshoot the problem?
Check the login history.
Yeah, login history is your first thing that we should be looking at. An administrator is receiving high volume of calls because of users cannot log into Salesforce. The administrator click login history and notices that most users have a status password lockout. What password policies can administrator change to reduce the number of lockouts? So typically, the higher number of login attempts that can be allowed, that is one thing. And the password, I mean, typically what kind of password that they should be setting. So those things they can change. So yeah, are we good so far? Yeah, let's, I mean, those are, I mean, mainly user creation is where the system admin would have a lot of things, and especially the login issues they have to troubleshoot, and the access issues. And the access issues we are going to look more deeper in this module. And we have one more thing. So restricting logins, we will cover a little deeper on that one, and then we will get into more data access. And how to set up record access, I mean, how to restrict the record access, and how to open up access. So those are the things that we can see, and also what are the things that we can do on the field level. Those things we can see in the next things. So I mean, we will cover these in detail. So object permissions, the field level security, page layout configurations. I mean, the different users want to see different user experience. That's where page layouts will we will use it. And we also will say, okay, these reports only the higher level management should be seeing, and these levels anyone should be able to see. On the folder level, we will give access, and any report that we create. So some reports we can put it in the open public thing, and some reports we can keep it in folders, and for the folders we can apply security. And same with dashboards. I mean, we will go through this in later. So the dashboards also we'll keep them in folders, and we apply some security there. And even for the list views, when we create list view, we can say, okay, everybody can see it, or only few people can see it. Those are all security things that we can do in the system. We will go through it in the coming classes. So now the next one is John, I mean the CEO. So he says, okay, I have a concern. I want to reduce the chances of unauthorized access to Salesforce. Marketing, account receivable, and recruiting users should only be able to log in during the company standard office hours, and only when connected to the company network. All other users should have 24/7 access and be able to log into the company network and and the VPN. So here he is saying, okay, he wants us to restrict access. So marketing users, account receivable, and recruiting users, you only want to see them logging in business hours, and only from the network. So the way how we can do those things, let's understand the how login works. So by default, whenever say we try to log in from Salesforce, it checks, okay, what is the user of the profile, and so what are the login hours that are set on the profile. So we will check those in a little bit, how to set up login hours and that stuff. And so, and also the, I mean, if you closely see, so so if you see here, there is a client cookie that yeah, every time, I mean, not every time, when the user first log in from a browser, it sets to the application level cookie. So then if the user again tries to log in, so it checks, okay, hey, whether this user, if there is something on the cookie, if it is already there, so because it knows, okay, this user already logged in from this PC once, and it let the user log in. So that's how that login works. And also sometimes when you do whitelisting, and it will not check, okay, it doesn't ask the security questions. So I think when we did the network access and all last time, we applied the open IP address 002.255 and all at that time. So Salesforce won't ask any, even though when you did the MFA, it didn't send any post message, basically that push notification. So it was not sending that one for Kishore. And when we looked at it, potentially we saw that we opened the system wide open with network access. So that caused the user not to send any more questions. I mean the mobile push. So after we removed it, it started sending those. So the first thing that he wanted was, so the John, so he wanted some profiles to be logged in only from the VPN. So from the when they say VPN, you need to get the company the login IP range. So there is, for each company, so when they establish the network, they create VPN. So I mean, for some of you who are not familiar with the organization, how they set up, they buy all those domains and all, and then so they have some open IP range. So basically, from, let's say, for company ABC, and they may have 53 I mean 53,0,0,0 to 53 0 56 something like that. So basically any IP range. So only the company employees when they log in, so that IP range will be those guys. Nobody else in the world can have that IP range. So that's how the VPN will act. And so let's say if that user, let's say I belong to ABSC company, and when I am on VPN, I always, when I try to access network, my IP range, my IP should be in that IP range, 53, 53, some one of those. And let's say when I log out of the VPN, so again, I get my public IP. So because of my internet provider, so I will have a different IP. So that's where this user, I mean, anybody from this ABC company. So that's how they force. Okay, let's say if you can't log into your system, the first thing that you need when you call the Salesforce support, they see who you are. When I say who you are, so basically, obviously, you should be the employee of the company. Then they check what is the profile that you belong to. And on the profile, first thing they check, okay, are there any company-wide network IP that added under the network access? And then they check, okay, are there anything that are assigned on the profile level IP ranges? So if the profile IP range is mentioned, so basically it will check, okay, it will not let anybody to log in without that IP range. So then they will ask you, okay, are you on VPN? So then, I mean, if the user is not on VPN, basically they have to log into the VPN, then it will allow. So that's the thing. And the whitelisting of IP, so that is for activation. So the push notifications and those stuff. And I mean, this is how it, user tries to attempt. And if we apply all those login hours and IP ranges, first it checks for login hours. Okay, is the user logging in the business hours, like 7 to 8 or 7 to 5 or 8 to 5, whatever we set. And if it is not meeting that requirement, immediately they'll say, okay, you cannot log in. Let's say if the user is logged in the business hours, but user forgot to log into VPN. So again, so because the profile has that check, so it will push them out, basically saying, okay, you cannot log in. And if the user already in the VPN, it will basically let them log in. So that's how this whole thing works. And here basically there is so it is asking us to set some login IP ranges and login hours. let's quickly look at that one. So these are all, I mean, typically when you are trying these things, you don't do anything on the system admin profile. Let's say if you do it on system admin profile, let's say you set login hours on your system admin profile and you say, okay, 8 to 5 p.m. And now when you log out, and or even maybe when you are in the system, so it will immediately check, okay, are you on the login login hours, and if it sees, okay, you are not in the login hours, it will immediately log you out, and you cannot log in until the next morning based on your profile. So that's why you have to be very careful when you do these settings, and it will potentially lock you out of the system. And the other dangerous setting on the profile is the IP hours one. And if you accidentally set some IP range, and if you will never ever be able to get into that IP range by accident, if you, let's say, if you put some IP range, and if that is not belong to your company, that's it. So you can never get into that org again. And I am not quite sure whether even Salesforce can help you. Most probably they should be able to support. And so those things you have to be very careful of. So these are the login hours. I know I am on system admin. I won't be changing and saving anything. So typically you can say, okay, from what time to what time, and that's how these things will work. And every time when the user of this profile, when they try to log in, it checks these settings. And if it is within that bound, so basically it will let them in, otherwise it will stop. Same thing with the IP ranges. So this is where you need to get your company IP range and you have to enter. And sometimes Salesforce would say they also want you to whitelist their IPs. So either you do it on profile or on the network access. So there also you enter some of those trusted IPs. So yeah, so this is the trusted IP, and if you enter these, typically you won't be asked those security questions and all. And the other one, it will enforce you. Let's say if you enter some IP range here, and even though you are not coming from this IP range, it will still let you in. But on the profile, if you enter something, and if you don't meet the requirement, it will definitely stop you. So those are those guys, the restricting login.
So first it checks the profile, and then if it's okay, then it goes to org level and then checks it again.
No. R, yeah. First it checks R, and then yeah, first it checks the profile. I mean, if it doesn't meet profile, so it won't even care about org level.
But even if it's allowed at the profile level, if it's not against it, that wouldn't happen, right? The use case.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you won't even say anything on the profile level, but you say something on the network access level. Network access is just a whitelist. So, I mean, it is not restriction, it is whitelist. When I say whitelist, it won't ask you a lot of tough questions there. I mean, you can play with that one. I believe it won't ask you some security push notifications and all. So I want you to try that one. So I'm not quite sure how it works, but when you try, you will know.
Sure.
Yeah. But I mean, this one, even though you enter some wrong IP, it will still let you in on the network access. But I mean, be prepared even if it locks you out. Maybe you may need to remember your org ID or maybe user ID. Based on that, Salesforce support might be able to help. But let's not get into that weird problem. So here, the setup object access. So account receivable members on of the finance team are currently able to create, edit, and delete records that they really need to view. I mean, ideally he's saying, so our folks should be seeing one. They should be having only read access, but they also have edit, create, delete access. So they the only records that they ever will need to edit are accounts, contacts, and opportunities, with perhaps occasional action need to create contacts. So basically, he doesn't want anybody, their folks, to create accounts um, and opportunities. Sorry, edit opportunities, but they only want them to create account contacts. And also he wants some permissions, basically report building. So he wants them to have that permission. So now, so when we look at this account receivable profile, so so this is the profile that he is talking about. So this profile has access to when we go to account object. I mean, you can directly see here. So here they say, so they have read access and edit access on the account. And on the account, they said, so this one is meeting. So they ever need to edit our account and contacts. And so let's say if we see maybe other permissions, if at all there is any assets, so they have delete. And contacts, they have delete permission. And they don't want them to delete records. And opportunities also, they don't want them to delete opportunity. Yeah, so they don't have opportunity to delete, but contact, they have delete. This one is not contact. Okay, this one. It looks good. So currently able to create edit records. The only records that they yeah, so based on that, I mean, if at all they need create access for contacts, so we give this create permission, and if they don't want any delete, potentially we take out the other delete permissions. And account receivable. So let's say this guy. Let's assume that he doesn't want. I mean, since he said he doesn't want them to delete anything, and here we can potentially remove this delete permission and save it. So they should not be able to delete anything, any assets going forward. So this one I want to show you. The moment you give modify all, immediately it gives the other permissions. Let's say I give that is bigger permission on the profile level. So let's say yeah. So we remove everything, and the moment we give modify all, it basically checks everything. So the create except create. Yeah, so these are the permissions most of the time. I mean, one-time setup when you create object. So we need to ask the right questions to the business team, whether even when we create custom object or anything. So we need to get, okay, what are the things that the business should be doing, whether they want to delete or whether they want to create, or is there any need for them to edit. And also the typical questions that we should ask, okay, is there anybody in the organization should be able to edit it. Anybody in the organization should not be able to even see. So based on that, we will adjust the security settings for that object. So, I mean, immediately, so for that question, so she asked, funny, I have almost opposite problems. My teams can't see the following objects. So link is from HR, and so HR people can see these things. So so let's see what is the profile, the HR, human resource. Yeah, so I believe the recruiting profile, right? We created that recruiting profile. So those guys can see some of those objects. So let's see if we applicant, interviewer, job application, and position. I think when we created it, we gave the right permissions. They should be able to create, can see the objects. So I mean, we fixed that one when we yesterday when we, I mean, last class when we were working on it. So we gave the right permissions. For account applicant, we gave this read, create, edit, and also for the job applications, we gave the right permissions. This guy. In interviewers, actually, we gave the delete also. I think this one was originally some chat comment, but when we created that one, we already take care of that one. So those are some of the questions, I mean, some of the requirements that business would throw at us, saying, okay, I need this kind of access, I want my users to do so and so, that kind of. And this is how we give the record access. So whenever there is a requirement, when we create an object, for the first things that we should ask, is there a restricted user? So let's say out of all the organization, is there anybody that shouldn't be seeing this record? If the answer is yes, so potentially the sharing model, I will show you this guy in a little bit. So let me actually show you this thing first. So this is on the object level, what they should be able to do with on the object itself. So when we say applicant, so they can go to the tab, they can navigate to the tab. I mean, because we said default on, and they have access to see the records, and they can create and they can edit it. But we haven't said which record they are able to see, which record they are able to edit. So that one will all come under here. So let's say the applicant. So here we give public read write. So what does that know? What it means? Anybody in the organization can view this record, can edit these records, as long as on the object wise they have read. If they have read object permission, and if they have edit permissions, they should be able to access all the records. Let's say if we have 10,000 applicants, all of them they should be able to see. And typically, because it is applicant information, not everybody, like sales users, doesn't have anything to do with that, so they shouldn't be seeing that information. But if that sales user is interviewing somebody, so then only they should be able to see that applicant. Otherwise, they should not be, ideally, they should not be seeing all the applicants. So those are some of the requirements that would come from business, and that's where it comes. So is there ever going to be an instance of this object that this user shouldn't be allowed to see? So in this case, the applicant information, so not everybody should be able to see. That's why we say this one should be a private model. So here we go and we set this guy as a private model. And I mean, when you are trying, potentially you can set this access to, I mean, without setting this, if you create some applicant, and when you log in as any user, so as long as that their profile permission has read, they should be able to see. I mean, before you change that one, if the profile has edit access, they should be able to change it also. So the moment we make this change to applicant as private, so obviously if the profile doesn't have the view access or read access, they won't be able to see, even if we say this one is public read write, because the permission profile doesn't give them that option. If this one is read write, and if the profile has read access, they should be able to see. And if this one is read write, and if the profile has read and edit, then they will be able to edit. So this is the most open one. So that's why we are calling this one as organization wide default. So if we say whatever we say here, if it is private, everybody, not everybody able to see, and we need to slowly expanding the access. That's the thing that we need to do. And is there ever going to be an instance of this object that this user should not be allowed to edit? So here we are saying the read access. Now here we are talking about the edit access. If we say, okay, hey, someone should not be able to edit, so then we need to go say this one, okay, so everyone can see, but not everyone should be able to edit. So at that time, we will set this guy to applicant. So let's say if a business says, okay, I don't have any problem, everybody seeing it, but as long as not everybody should be able to edit. So if you control that, we are fine. If they say it, we set this one as public read, and we give on the profile level read access, and they're good to go. So we don't need to do any more changes, and everybody should be able to see, and only few folks that we will going to expand the access. So only those guys will be able to edit. So that's how this record access, I mean, this is very critical and some tricky things. So object access. So the way, I mean, this is the bigger picture. So basically, whenever obviously someone need to log into the system, because if in order for them to do anything. So first they have to have login access. Then we have to check what is on the profile, and also what is on the record access. The record access should come from this. First, it come from sharing settings, whatever, whether it is private. If it is private, basically unless until we expand this sharing with some permissions that we are going to talk about. So those are the ways to expand again. So let's say if you have access to a record and some fields you don't want everybody to see, so there again we are going to set some field level security. That way we are going to hide that field, even though everybody has access to that record, we can still control the field level. So those are the things, the main basically. So the lowest level is the organization wide default, and to expand, I mean, this is how you expand. Basically, you limited the visibility and and also the editability through organization wide setting by making it as private or public read, right? Public read. If you make this as public read write, potentially these all will go on the fly, so they have no impact, because everybody, we said here, organize the applicant object. If we say public read write, I mean, these won't have any impact, because we already gave everybody take edit access kind of thing. Whereas if you say, okay, hey, applicant object should be only visible to, I mean, let's say it is not visible to it should not be visible to anybody by default. Then we have to say, okay, but obviously in Salesforce, every record should be owned by someone. So let's say I'm creating a record, immediately I become the owner, unless there is some process that assigns the record ownership. And typically when I own the object access, so yeah, here, right here, I mean, these are very key things. You have to be very careful and should be knowing the details about this. The grant access using hierarchy. So let's say there is a private one. So let's pick this applicant. So let's assume that we again we make it as private. Let's assume we make this applicant as private. And so immediately everybody will lose access to this thing. And let's say I create an applicant. Because I created that one, I obviously own that record, and I have access by default. Whoever creates it or whoever owns is the owner, they will have record access. And then if we check this bar, basically just this guy, so grant access using hierarchies. What does that mean? So under role hierarchy, so let's say my boss, boss, all of them by default inherit my access to them. So that's what this grant access using hierarchy. So let's for some scenarios, you don't even want your manager to see your access. Basically, let's say there is a coaching firm that only should be owned by you, and nobody else should be seeing. Maybe your manager should be able to see sometimes, because he is the one that is giving you coaching, but not his manager and so forth. So at that time, you just remove this guy, even grant access using hierarchies, and you typically you give your record access manually or through programmatically. We have to give access. So those are these things. very critical ones that everyone should know how to set up access, especially the admins. So now let's say we created this applicant and now we made this as private. I made this private. So now how to give access to these records? So the applicant record is private. I mean, whatever the discussion that we are doing, it is applicable to all objects, whether it is contact, I mean, however we want to say. So let's say we are talking about opportunity is private, and the same thing applies to opportunity also. Let's say if we say this guy is private, going forward, whoever created that opportunity or whoever is the owner of that opportunity, only those guys. Okay, the sharing rule is running. So by default, I mean, whatever we say that will take into effect, and slowly we have to expand that access. Yeah, so when you set that one, typically you see a message, warning message here saying, okay, here the sharing rules are running, and until unless that one is over, so this won't show whatever you just did. So once the sharing rules are run, then it will show what the desired setting that you did. So here now we made this as private, but on the opportunity, I mean, on the object level for the profiles, we may have given read access. Even though it is read access, not everybody should be able to see because it is private, and only whoever owns those guys and the managers of those users will be able to see at this point of time. To expand the access, there is something called the sharing rules. So if you go underneath here, so these are all the sharing rules. So now on the opportunity, basically what are the sharing rules you want to say? So when we say this guy, so basically now we are creating a sharing rule, and we'll how you want to share these guys. Basically, let's say opportunities, every sales person should be seeing, and then we will say, okay, here criteria, let's say record owner, and we create a role, and there are roles and subordinates. Basically, you will say anybody under EMEA sales director, and below are sales operations. So let's say sales operation. We say all the sales opportunities will be shared by the sales operations. So whoever, if the member is if the owner of that opportunity is anybody in this here, this is the criteria, so that we are setting. The opportunity should be owned by somebody, and if the guy is owned, if the guy belongs to one of these guys, and I'm fine, so I want to share this one with the same thing. So basically, let's say you say sales operations, I mean, or maybe let's see, there is a better one here. Yeah, so basically all internal users is a wide open public group, and everybody in the company will be underneath this guy. So all internal. So all we are saying, because all the opportunities owned by at least I mean, any opportunity should be owned by somebody in the company, and what we are saying, okay, anybody the owner of the opportunity is anybody in the organization, and we want to share those opportunities with the sales operations team. So that's what we are saying. And also what kind of access we want to give. Do you want to give only read access, or do you want to give write access also? Those things, this is the sharing by private. We said private, nobody should be able to see by default. Now we are slowly expanding this access. Now the moment we say this guy, and everybody in the sales organization and the sales operations So we'll be able to see. So let's look at the role hierarchy one more time. So this is the role hierarchy. So we said sales operations, where is that? Yeah. So we said this guy, sales operation. Basically, I mean, this is at a very lower level. But what we said, okay, whoever is in this organization, so if at all this Alan Wang, Courtney Brown, Tony Jenkins, so these guys should be able to see all the opportunities, but they won't be able to edit. So let's look at these guys, what profile they have, whether these guys profile. I mean, this guy is a sales user, and let's see what is their profile permission. So on the opportunity, so we said we read, create, edit, and delete. So these are the permissions that we set. And let's log in as one of these users and see what they can do with that opportunity. Oh no, actually I should. Okay, that's fine. So let's go to opportunities. You see, right now I log in as Kevin Bailey. So even though this user is on sales profile, this user has read access, create access, and delete access on opportunities from profile. But even though I said show me all the opportunities, it is not showing anything. But this user can create opportunity, and because once they create this opportunity, they should be able to. So he created this opportunity because he wants this opportunity. So there should be a owner field. Yeah, opportunity owner, because he wants it, so he will be able to edit it, he will be able to delete it, because the profile allows that one. So now if he sees all opportunities, so he still sees only that opportunity that he wants. And if we log out of this user, and now let's go back to Kevin, one of those users that we created the sharing rule. The sharing rule, the way we created, Kevin Bailey is a part of the organization, so he should be part of all internal user group. And let's look at that one more time, that sharing setting. So the owner in all internal users, that is the criteria. Since Kevin Bailey is owner of the opportunity and he is part of that public group, the criteria meets. Now we are also saying, okay, who he wants to share with. So basically this opportunity will be shared with sales operations team. So now anybody under sales opportunity, now Alan Wang, if we log in as Alan Wang is also a sales user. Now let's log in as this user. And if we go to all opportunities, so now he is able to see a lot of opportunities. So now let's say, yeah. So again, the sharing rule that we gave, we only said, okay, we want to allow this user, the sales operation role user, to have a display access. But I mean, when I say display, read access, we never gave edit access to that user. So that's why this one is still throwing when I try to edit it, it is saying insufficient privileges. So that's how we control the sharing for the users. Yeah, that's where this role hierarchy came in, and we add the sharing rules, and also sometimes the users can manually share the records with other users. So you start with low, I mean, you don't give any permission. Slowly you add the permission. So you expand the access. This is how you do it. And this is the main thing. So basically, first things that you ask, okay, is there anybody that shouldn't see this record? Is there anybody that shouldn't edit this record? Based on that, based on the answer that business is going to give you, so you will decide what is the sharing model of that object. And this is the key thing. So when you, let's say when you miss it, I mean, obviously you can fix it later, but let's say you go to a production arc and if you try to change some settings later, and sometimes it even takes days to do the sharing calculations, because let's say there are a million records and there are 10,000 users. Now when we, even one small change that we do on the sharing level, it has to apply to the complete organization. So that's why it takes a lot of time, and it's better to do the right thing from the start. Otherwise it is going to take a lot of time. So I think this is the same thing. So basically that we discussed. If there is any user shouldn't be able to see, so you should start with private model. Is there any user that shouldn't be able to edit? You start with read access and then you slowly expand it. And same thing here. So basically different ways they're showing. And so even for reports, I mean, when we say list views, basically even when you go to report, when you write report, give me all the opportunities. So that one won't even give any records other than the records that they have access. And same thing when you write based on the settings that we do. So it basically follows the same thing. And whatever the way you try to access the record, you will still, Salesforce will still force you, enforce all those settings. So I think we are almost at 10:30. So maybe what we can do, actually let's see if we can do. As a result of AWT data access requirements, we have decided to use a hybrid data model. You need to edit the organization-wide default to determine the appropriate record access. Set lead, account, contact, campaign, default internal access to public read only. Set opportunity case default internal access private, and internal access to private. Yeah, very straightforward one. So basically what they are asking us to do, so they decided, okay, some should be globally private, some records should be globally public, and some should be read write. So everything we start here, sharing settings. So they are saying for lead, account, contact, campaign, public read write, public read only. I think we build our next courses on this one. So maybe later you also do the same settings, or maybe when as I'm doing it, so you also should try to follow this. Account, they said public read, and lead also public read. And the contact public read, and the campaign so those are public read only. And opportunity we already said, case is private. And then applicant, interviewer, and position default internal access to private. I think we already set the applicant, and the interviewer private, position private. And job applications, they didn't say anything. So the job application, where is that? Okay, I think that is not even. So those are the objects. They want us to set the access, and once we save it, potentially it will run the sharing rules for a little while, and it will, yeah. So one or more sharing rule operation has been initiated, and since our arc doesn't have a lot of information, so it will quickly come back and say, okay, the system is ready. But if it is a big arc, it will take a lot of time.
And do you mind pausing here?
Yeah, I think we better stop here. We will, yeah, I think we talked about all these things. Yeah, we will continue from this, from the next class. Yeah, so everybody, I mean, let me, I will share this guide. So please follow that sharing settings. And also, I mean, this one is a lot of information. I mean, this is very critical information. Please practice this. And as you change the settings, like how we did with the Bailey user and also that other user, and you should be able to see the results immediately as you play in the system. Basically, try to control access, try to expand access, start playing with the system, you get more ideas, and especially object access and organization wide settings and sharing settings, they all work together to give the right access to the user. And sometimes you take out all the access to the user and give more access on the profile, but less access on the sharing settings, and see how it works. And maybe if there are options on the profile level to overwrite what we are giving here, and those all you can see it underneath here. So let's say yeah, some of the overwriting ones also you will see at a later place. Yeah, play with those settings, and this is very important one from security point of view. And definitely when you are taking the exam, I believe this is the topic where you get a lot of questions in the exam. Yeah, I'm sure we will be having a lot of questions, at least I'm hoping. Please go through it. And yeah, let's meet on Thursday.
Is there anything that you want to share from Trailhead?
Yeah, I will check the trailhead one. I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of content on this one. So I will check and send the links. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night.